I know. Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see everybody. I have a few quick items for you tonight. Two of the items are items from last week's Finance and Facilities meeting. It is our Chromebook Resolution, which is a purchase of additional Chromebooks, which we discussed last week at Finance and Facilities. And it is for Chromebooks, another round of Chromebooks, and we're setting aside a little over $150,000 to get the best REMC price we can for those Chromebooks to add to our inventory, and that is Chromebooks are clearly for student use at school or at home, so that's on there. That's from last week. And secondly is the furniture resolution, and that is we also went over that in great detail. We were fortunate to have Carrie Sini, an interior designer from TMP architecture firm, last week with us, and she went over the details of that with us as well, and that is on the agenda for your consideration this evening. Finally, I have every month, and we've gone over this every month for the past several months, we are asked to report to the board by the Michigan Department of Education two-way interaction rates. And that is, I think we have a PDF attachment there for you. Those numbers are for January, so we are always reporting at the board meeting of the previous month's two-way interaction rates. Those are reported on a weekly basis, and we've been fortunate to be in the 90s, mid-90s. January's numbers are all in the mid-90s. 90% as a percent of classrooms and students that achieved the two-way interaction rate. And I think I defined it back in the fall, maybe the first couple times we did it, but the state requires us to account for at least two-way interactions per week when you're in a remote setting. So those are there for you. Finally, and I think I might have mentioned this at the last board meeting, but we've certainly been talking about it a lot lately, is we've begun planning for summer. So at the it's a couple meetings, we've already discussed it, and I think it was mentioned at the last board meeting. What summer learning will look like this summer, we're thinking it'll be a big program, a robust program. Royal Oak has always offered summer learning opportunities, but last summer and certainly this summer, those need to be expanded. Last summer's summer school programs were very much expanded over previous years because of the pandemic, and this summer will again as well. Last summer, we were mostly still in a remote setting, so those programs we had last summer were remote. In a planning meeting, couple planning meetings we've had recently, we're acknowledging that a remote option would still need to be there this summer for families, but we think that families would also like to have some in-person opportunities this summer as well, so we're planning for that as well. And that's at all levels. So just wanted you to know that the planning is going on for that, and hopefully getting some brochures out or information out to families in March. Registration, you probably wouldn't occur before April, maybe even May. We found we can offer it earlier. We have found in the past that families are firming up plans more toward the May timeframe and figuring those things out. So that's what I have for you. Any questions about that?
This is Van Heitzma.
Yeah, just about the summer. So I think last year we offered it free for families. Is that the plan for this summer? And then also, are there caps on the number of students or anything like that?
I think the goal would be to get free options out there for us again, and we used grant money for that last year, and that is a big part of our conversation right now, making sure those grants are going to be there again. And I think the second part, I think those questions are a little related. I hope there's not a cap. If we can get enough grant money and enough staff, I would hope not. Staffing will be a key piece. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Next on our agenda is Finance, Facilities, and Bond. Ms. Abella.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Good evening, everyone. I have one item on tonight's agenda. It's 8.6. It's for DTE for the electrical service upgrade at Upton Elementary, and that's due to the new addition. This cost is for a new transformer and new feed from the street. This item was discussed last week in detail at Finance and Facilities. Before I move forward, are there any questions specifically about the agenda item for this evening? All right, I don't see any. So one of our favorite subjects, the governor released her 2021-2022 budget recommendations this morning. Some highlights from the budget proposal include her recommendation for a per pupil foundation allowance increase of $82 to $164 per pupil using the 2X formula. And under that formula, Royal Oak schools would see an increase of $82. The student count would return to the 90-10 split and not the super blend of the current school year. But there is money in the recommendation to replace up to 70% of the loss of revenue due to declining enrollment. A combined 2% increase in special education, economically disadvantaged, English language learners, and rural and isolated district funding. But I have not seen the detail yet, so I cannot tell at this point how that section might impact our district directly. There is also a few pots of money dedicated to student recovery, including student learning, summer learning, and out of school time, as well as continuing the funding for the literacy coaches at the same levels that we have this year to continue into the 21-22 school year. But it's important to remember that this is only a first step in the overall budget process. This provides detail on the governor's budget priorities only. We are far from a final version that will make its way through both the House and the Senate. This is good information as we begin our discussion of our 2021-22 school budget, but we will change before the final state budget is in place. Are there any questions? I mean, that's new information hot off the presses, but if you have any questions that I might be able to answer, I'd be happy to take those about the budget.
Ms. Bella, so
Yes.
could you explain the 90-10 and the super blend that you referred to?
Absolutely. So generally in a school year, 90% of the student count is based on the current year fall count, and 10% of our pupil count is based on last spring. And that is how it's been for the last several years. This year, they did a super blend where they took the year before and blended it with the current year. So districts that had a declining enrollment didn't take as large of a loss in student count. So her recommendation is to return to that normal 90 fall, 10% spring count. But what I did find interesting in her budget recommendation was also to help districts fill that hole by 70%. So there'll be more to come on that for sure.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
All right, so I have some pictures of the construction that's going on around the district. Royal Oak High School in the Learning Commons, if you've been there, and when you enter to the right, there was an area that we had we had tables, and they used that with different groups of students. They have now installed the glass walls, and you can see a couple photos here of those walls, some of them open and some of them collapsed, that when they want to open up the space and use it as a large area. Can you go to the next slide, please? And then here's another shot from up above. You can see those on the left, those cabanas installed where students will be able to work in small groups. They felt it was advantageous to be able to have a little bit more of a barrier between those individual spaces. And then to the right, you can see some of those glass partitions closed. A lot of the furniture looks like it's moved to the side, and it'll look a little different once all the furniture has moved back out into the area that the students use. This is Oakland Elementary. While we had some additional time, they went back and they worked on some casework that's in the teachers' workroom there. You can see the copier and some countertops and the boxes for the teachers, things like that. Next slide, please. And then just as a reminder, our 2021 work is at Adams and Upton Elementary. So these are some of the projects that will begin as we get into the spring at Adams Elementary: doors, lockers, casework, restrooms, remodeling of cafeterias, the restrooms, learning commons, in addition to new furniture for the students. Next slide, please. And then Upton Elementary, similar to Adams, except for that they will be receiving a new gymnasium and 2 new classrooms that will exist on the back side of Upton Elementary. Next slide, please. You can see work has begun at Upton. The trailer's there, the construction fence is up. Next slide, please. And then on the inside, so where this new gym's gonna go, there are currently some a classroom and a set of bathrooms. And you can see they put up the temp walls that will separate that space as the construction progresses at Upton. Next slide, please. And then I believe this is the last one. Finally, you can see that they're starting to do some of that prep work of where that addition's going to go. They're going to do their best to get in there and work as the weather allows them. And they're making some progress. They're doing a great job. And I think that's the last slide, right? Are there any questions about any of the bond work that's going on around the district or any of the construction work? No? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 3.3 on our agenda is staff and student services. Mr. Walensky.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I have a few updates on topics I presented last month that I just want to update you on. And the first being the vaccination. As you recall, last month I announced this recent notice from the Oakland County Health Department that vaccinations were made available for school employees. And in fact, I think that came out days before our board meeting, and employees found out about it before even I did. And I reported to you that they quickly filled up. Employees that found out got right on, signed up for the vaccine. They quickly filled up. By the time of our board meeting, staff were signing up on a wait list. So we weren't really sure, but we knew a lot of people wanted to get vaccinated. And as I said then, I couldn't really tell you who had signed up or not because it was private and it was like making a doctor's appointment. And although I still don't have precise numbers, I'm happy to report that most of our staff are now registered. Most of our staff have received their first vaccination, and many will have their second vaccination prior to March 1st. And I can tell you just from working with staff who had very serious concerns about coming back for health-related reasons, it has alleviated a great deal of anxiety. So that's good. And we found that out just through, basically anonymous surveys that our principals did. So I don't have exact precise numbers at this time. Equally, if not even more important for our staff, is that many of them have parents, elderly parents, or immediate family members who are of high risk, and many of them have been vaccinated as well. So again, it's alleviated a lot of their anxiety about returning to school. We've been out of school for about a year now, so obviously there's anxiety for other reasons as well still, but that certainly helped. Second thing I want to update you on is the Clear to Go app, which I mentioned last month. Employees have been using it for about 6 weeks now. It's a real simple health screener app. You go through and answer a series of questions. Do you display any one of the following symptoms? If no, it takes you to the next question. Are you displaying any 2 of the following symptoms? If no, it takes you to the next question. As I mentioned last month, we are going to ask that parents screen their child every morning. They're going to get a notification at 7:30 in the morning, a text message and an email asking them to screen. And we're going to roll that information out to parents tomorrow. Information on how to set up their account. They're going to get an email. It could be easier. And then they're going to get directions on how to download this free app that works on Androids or iPhones. And in fact, Ms. Haynes' son did a real nice how-to video with Mary Sire. So we want to spend the next couple of weeks making sure parents have the app and they know how to do it, because come March 1st, everybody's going to screen every day before they come to school. Lastly, just a brief update on enrollment. Enrollment began January 28th, and I'm happy to report that we're off to a great start. Because people are doing this virtually, they actually started before January 28th. We're up to 180 children enrolled for kindergarten next year. So with the 73 children currently enrolled in developmental kindergarten, they don't have to re-enroll. Moving up to kindergarten, that puts our kindergarten enrollment at 253 children for next year. Typically, we enroll, as I always say, right around 400. So a week into enrollment, we have 253 children enrolled for a school year that I'm optimistic is going to be much more normal than the past 2 school years. The elementary transfer request window will open up January 4th, and it goes through February 26th. And we've only received about 30 requests for transfers during that so far. And the limited schools of choice window for grades K through 8 opens March 1st and goes through the 26th of March. So that's coming up too. And that's my report. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Van Heitzman?
Mr. Walensky, you said the parents, can high school students do their own Clear to Go? Or is it all the parents?
Thank you for asking that. I should have said that. Actually, we're going to allow middle school and high school students, if the parents enable them in the settings, to do their own screener every morning. Elementary school children, we're going to ask parents to do on their behalf.
Any other questions? Okay, 3.4, cultural competence engagement, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Well, thank you very much. Since our last meeting, I know that some of our subcommittees continue to work and meet. Many of our board members, community members, and staff are on those subcommittees, and we'll be doing another review of where the subcommittees are and what might need to be conducted for them prior to our next large group meeting, which is open to the community, and anyone is welcome to join us. We're also hopeful that that meeting will be able to be in person if we can, but we certainly will send out notifications for that. And that date is March the 16th, and that's the full district committee. And again, we're always looking for new members. If you'd like additional information or anyone is interested in joining that group or finding out more about what's happening, there is information on the website. And you can also contact Mr. Ioannis. He is our principal over at Adams, and his name and contact information is also on the website. So we can join then. One thing that has come together and that we're beginning to work on is that we want to do some shared learning and some shared understanding with more interested community members and parents. And we may do that through a shared book study, read some common material or common book or articles on the topic. And we're very excited to start a new partnership with our Royal Oak Public Library, to where the public library could become involved with the district to open it up to community members and work together on that. And so we're just making those contacts now and taking a close look at the recommended reading material, but there will be more to come, and we would invite anyone who'd like to join that group and do some shared reading on the topic with us. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Seeing none, we come to item 4, our first opportunity for public comment. To make a public comment request during this virtual board meeting, please use the raise your hand button to request to speak for public comment. When the board president reads your name, you'll be unmuted. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. There are 2 opportunities for public comment. Please address the board as a whole and not individually. Public comment is not intended for the exchange of dialogue. This is a time for members of the public to express their views. We are paying attention to your comments and we do appreciate them. However, school board members generally do not respond to public comment during the meeting. Questions that arise from public comment shall be referred to the superintendent or her designee for review, study, and possible future response. Do we have people who would like to comment?
I see Danielle.
Danielle Hankinson.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
can.
Thank you for this opportunity. I have previously sent an electronic communication to the board regarding reevaluating the amount of face-to-face time for our students. A board member was nice enough to respond that the principals and their admin teams are responsible for developing these plans, while the board just approves them. I did forward this email to my principal. The only response I received was basically asking who had referred me to him. Regardless of all of this, the accountability lies with both parties for the development and the approval. Those parents in favor of an all virtual school have that option. Those parents in favor of face-to-face time have a subpar option that needs improvement in our opinion. We are respectfully asking you on behalf of at least 50 parents who share these sentiments that you reconsider the plans being put forth in the Royal Oak School District. Proper precautions can be taken to allow our children back into school. Face-to-face instruction can only improve the consistency of the schedule and likely improve the mental health of the students who are struggling in this virtual environment. My daughter is a 7th grader at Royal Oak Middle School. We were hopeful that the 2-day option would be a 2 full-day option A/B schedule, similar to the Birmingham and Berkeley school districts. This provides more consistency with the normal school schedule and allows working parents to better arrange their transportation. We would also like to see a better plan to transition to 4 or 5 full days by the end of the 3rd marking period, or at longest by the beginning of the 4th marking period. The school district has already lost dozens of children due to the inaction and disorganized planning that we perceived during the pandemic. We need to see sensible risk-based assessment, not planning based on fear. Many of us are essential workers, including myself, who have worked outside the home and understand the need to have proper safety precautions and vaccination. We fully support these standards, but believe it's time to put our students back in school. I have also sent a FOIA request for statistics regarding absences, drops in GPA, and classes. The point of this isn't to provide unnecessary work for anyone. It's to illustrate that our children need to be in school. We are begging you to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Catherine Condit.
Yes, hi. I'm Catherine Condit. Sorry.
Would you state your address? I'm sorry. For the record.
Sure. 524 James Circle in Royal Oak. And I have a son at the middle school and a son at the high school. I signed into the board meeting today hoping to get information on how many students signed up for the in-person hybrid plans at the middle school and the high school, because I haven't seen that data shared anywhere. And I'm interested in it because my children, I'm keeping them at home. To the point the previous speaker made, I don't feel like the limited in-school time is going to be a performance enhancer for my children to be on site. So I'm curious to know how the hybrid plan is going to be carried out and how many children are attending it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board? Mrs. Sutterfield, do you see anyone else?
I do not.
Thank you very much. Public comment is closed. That brings us to item 5, communications.
Mr. Carlin?
I guess I'm unmuted. Sorry about that. It took me a minute to adjust my screen so I could get at the buttons. First, I'd like to just let people know on January 29th, we had a little bit of an issue with the contact the board feature on our website. It was due to a vendor update. It was corrected later that day. So we did get some emails that day. Apologize for the inconvenience if anyone struggled with that day. We had quite a few communications, most of them regarding the return to school plan. I'm going to go through the few that were not the return to school plan, and then I'm just going to run through the names of all the return to school plan emails. Nora Mullen wrote regarding parliamentarian services. Sandra Dukey wrote about the MASB Region 8 election. Bridget McQuiston wrote about the MASB Region 8 election. Becky Novak wrote about a legislative incentive, and Stephanie Van Herentz wrote in with a busing question. And then the rest of these are all about return to school. And I apologize, there's a lot of names here, and if I mess up on them, I'm sorry. Jennifer Appleby, Danielle Doan, Jennifer Burney, Kristen Belinsky, Nora Mullen, Jessica Conklin, Amanda McDonald, Elizabeth Mulheisen, Andrew Belinsky, Beth Sims, Michelle Ludostansky, Amanda Muckenthaler, Jessica Todd, Lisa Zay Winters, Brad Muckenthaler, Rosemary Benda, Vatina Keith, Jesse Bagos, Lisa Austin, Tamerlyn Blackwood, Katie Bonus, Sarah Miller, Brian Hacker, John Hill, Mary Beth Saltzman, Jane Wood, Stacy Eberhardt, Michelle Stern, Mandy Knotts, Brenda Rhodes, Melissa Berry, Brad Muckenthaler, Jennifer Humphrey, Ashley Morrell, Dana Stanzewski, Jane Wood, Harley Mieres, Scott Miller, Kristen Biondo, Kristen Lowenstein, Marianne Beebe, Jessica Bagos, Stacy Eberhardt, Melissa Berry, Susan Hedge, Kristen Biondo, Kristen Lowenstein, Sarah Gossett, Jesse Bagos, Jennifer Stark, Stacy Wojciechowicz, Amanda Halabu-Steyer, Kimberly Peel, Kim Sachs McConway, Heather M. Zeller, and Rebecca Mubarez. And if the names appeared more than once, they did write more than once. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Cardinal. That brings us to item 6, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. A few items to draw your attention to this evening. Item 8.3 on the board agenda is a agreement to amend the documents that we share regarding the International Academy. As you know, we send a number of students each year to participate in the consortium program of the International Academy. I serve as a member to that governing body, and they also have a set of bylaws and rules by which they operate to oversee the program with my fellow superintendents in the county. We're making some recommendations tonight to amend that agreement just to shore up some language that's used within it and how we operate. It does not, by and large, change any function of how we operate with the International Academy. It doesn't change our agreement with them in terms of sending students. It's more about some of the procedures and meetings. I do attend those meetings when they are held. They've been virtual, like most of our meetings lately, but I am recommending that we adopt the amendments. Any amendments that are made to this document must be brought before each of the public school boards of the participating districts. So I'm doing that on behalf of Railroad for this evening. Item 8.4 is a recommendation to support candidates for the MASB Board of Directors. This is also a function of what a public school board would do. MASB represents the Michigan Association of School Boards, and they have a board of directors as well. They also look for support from our local boards for those members that are up for election as representatives. Item 8.5 is the second reading of some revised and replaced policies and guidelines that we have. As you know, we work with Neola, a law firm that oversees many board policies for districts in the state of Michigan. There are some language changes, some mandatory language changes. Often these follow changes in the federal law. We can no longer refer to programs by a former name if our policy uses the former name, we have to change them. That's just an example. But again, I'm also recommending those policies for your approval tonight, and it is the second reading, and those would be adopted by us with your consent this evening. Item 8.1 is our learning plan, and I'm bringing it before you for two reasons. One, I'd like to go over some of the information just regarding our plan, kind of a recap of our meeting that was held last month regarding that plan and where we're headed as a team. First of all, I'd like to applaud our staff and our administrators for all the work that they've done on the plan. We've gotten a lot of email, as you could hear from the list that Mr. Cardamone read. A lot of people saying, weren't you ready? Aren't you ready? Well, we are ready. And there's just, I think the plans themselves are complicated and complex. As our callers have said tonight and in other times, many people want their students back. And we as a district, I'm very proud to say, have offered a lot of choice for our families. Our staff are being creative. They're being responsive. They're working in full hybrid for almost a year now. This will be our third return to school date that we've tried. We wanted to come back in November. We aimed for February 1st, and we're now at the benchmark of March the 1st to return our students to school. I know our staff are eager, as well as they're also apprehensive. Of course you would be after going back all this time, after being home all this time. And we expect that of our students as well. But I can tell you the excitement is in the air. We're visiting schools. We're seeing the classrooms ready. We're organizing board visits next week to some of our schools to see the COVID response items that have been put into the schools, as well as see some of our new construction that we typically would be doing this time of year. So those will take place next week. But our staff are ready, and they're anxious, and they're excited to see their students in person. And we know that the value of being in the classroom and being back in your school is very meaningful for all of our students, especially those in kindergarten or 6th or 9th grade, where this will be the first time they'll be stepping foot in those schools and seeing their friends. So it'll be like another first day of school all over again. So we are looking forward to March the 1st, and our plans are hybrid for students who want to come in face-to-face. The alternating days is an alphabetical breakdown, as we've discussed before. And we do have numbers on students that have requested that, families that have requested it for their children. I spoke with the principals today, took information from them, and roughly a little over 40% of the high school students right now are indicating that they want to come in for that in-person instruction. It's about 57% at Royal Oak Middle School to date of students that are electing that. The other percentage of students would be electing a full remote schedule to remain fully remote and continue with the program that they have been doing. Across our elementary schools, it's a range. Each school has, some high or low spots by grade and or by grouping, but we range anywhere from about 58% who want to come back to as high as almost 85% at some of our elementary schools. And these are parents that have elected hybrid, that alternating daily schedule to come into school and be in person for their instruction. And so that's encouraging. We have a lot of people who were able to choose what they wanted to do. The numbers in the virtual academy, the pure virtual academy that we started in the fall, right away when school started, have remained pretty stable all year. The parents that elected that program have stayed in it and wanted to remain in it for the second semester. But we certainly also give our parents options to change their mind. The AB schedule does allow us that even at a maximum, if all of the students wanted to come back, we still would be in ranges where we could allow for social distancing and following the rules that we have from the CDC. Any questions on those numbers or the plan that was approved by the board for March 1st at our last meeting? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just for clarification for everybody again, we had talked about if the parent chooses once their student, some of the students go back on March 1st, parents can change plans to then join the in-person, just for clarification.
So in our elementary schools, they can, because it's a homeroom teacher and it's your class and you're already scheduled. You're either in A grouping or a B. I would ask that if any parents want to change their mind from what they've elected, that they contact the principal and make sure that that's known. We want to know who to expect in the class. It's not like we want kids jumping between coming on a day when they want to or not. It's really making a selection and then staying. But certainly if they change their mind as things progress, we would want parents to call the principal or send them an email and contact them. The high school and the middle school are a little different in that students are electing into a class. And I would say that the documentation put out by the principals is what I would follow. And I can make sure that that clarification goes out to families. I know, for example, at the middle school, our virtual option has always been that students would enroll in the virtual only class and they're assigned there. So they really wouldn't jump off their schedule and then now just start showing up at school because their class is fully virtual by nature. I'm certain that if there's a schedule change that's requested, that would work through the counselors and through the school personnel. But I will clarify that for the secondary students, how they would arrange for any change in what they elect or the schedule that they have. We also have some childcare options. I know Ms. Ashburn has presented before that we have a limited number of seats in a latchkey after school, the Young Oaks program, for families that want to elect that. They held a lottery to be sure that if we had more requests for it than we had space, that we would certainly fill the lottery and then put folks on a wait list. Again, if you have a desire to be in that program, I would ask that you look at our website. There's a lot of information, and then contact Ms. Ashburn to talk about any childcare needs that the students might need for the latchkey program at each of our schools. It's not always as easy with those programs to just expand when we would like to. There are many licensing rules that we have to follow, and in some cases, the rules that are put forth for those programs are a little more stringent even than our K-12 rules. We can't just open and add classrooms and find staff. There's a licensing program that has to be followed. They have to be inspected and certified. So it's much more than just babysitting or daycare. That you might arrange privately. We do have to follow all those rules. So we want to make sure that we know who we're expecting on a given day. So I would ask that they contact Ms. Ashburn. And then finally, the item on the agenda tonight is really a new requirement of schools, and that is that each month the board is required to consider the plan. We are also then, we have to comply and send our plan back to the state on a monthly basis of exactly where we are in our planning and our return to school learning for the entire school year. This is something very new. We had to submit a plan last August, if you recall. We had to post it on the website, and we still do post all of those documents on our transparency page. But now it's a monthly obligation, and it's quite detailed. They ask us which groups of students are in or out, how we meet the needs of our most at-risk population, and it's all the way down to details by program and by grade. And I thank Ms. Olson and her team for taking care of that on behalf of the district and submitting it. But you will continue to see this item on the agenda for the board for the duration of this school year. We're not sure what it will mean for next school year, but certainly for every month of this school year, you will see this as a standard item. And they want to make sure that the public boards and the public are considering the plans that a district is putting forward. So and the item tonight is to reconfirm that plan that we have in place. We are very much looking forward to March the 1st to have our students back in school. I know that some of our sports teams, athletic teams, were able to get started with that information. I will also add that the numbers from the Oakland County Health Department were supplied to county superintendents today, and the outlook is very positive. Each one of the areas where they measure either testing or positivity rates amongst the different age groups or number of tests that are given are all trending in the right direction, meaning positive. So numbers are dropping, serious cases are dropping, deaths are dropping. This virus is still with us. It's not eliminated, but certainly we're on a path to much better days than what we were seeing deep in November in the fall when things were actually trending the exact opposite. So that's very good news for us. And I will be that information is available on the Oakland County website for anyone who would like to take a look at it. And I will also add a summary of that information to the board in my report to them. Any other questions on our return to school plan?
Mrs. Haynes.
Mary Beth, did you say that the latchkey was going to be available at all the different elementary schools?
Yes, we have the latchkey programs, and depending on how they've been certified in the spaces that they use for latchkey, the numbers could be different. So it's not a standard number, but the programs that we would offer would be available. And there's a lot of information on the website, and they can also contact Ms. Ashburn for more details. Yes.
And it's the same kind of hours till 5 o'clock?
Great question. I go till 6 actually, and was getting out
It's
early.
been so long since I've had my key.
I will find out. But I will also say that we do with the elementary schedule, the day is ending at 2:30. That was an adjustment that was made. And I know that the latchkey would begin immediately as school is dismissed. Like now that we're getting out an hour earlier, I know they've made some adjustments to make sure that was taking place for all the kids. So, but I will certainly make sure that information is conveyed to everyone.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Van Heitzwald?
Yeah, Mrs. Fitzpatrick, just for clarification, I think we had talked about it last month a little bit, but the food program that we still provide for children, as we transition into March 1st in the hybrid, do we know how that's going to work beginning March 1st?
I do, and I will invite Miss Abella to add anything that I might miss. But we will continue providing meals to students who are fully remote or at home. And that is by family pickup, where they can come to the sites to pick up their food. And then for our elementary children staying at school for lunch, as well as for our students that are at the school, there will be lunches provided or a grab and go bag that children can also participate in. We do have confirmation that the free meals program would go through the end of this entire school year. Miss Abella, are meals still being delivered out of the two schools that have been doing it so far? We didn't change that, right, once we're back?
They are currently still providing meals out of Royal Oak Middle School and Royal Oak High School. And some of the elementary buildings have chose they're going to, when they receive their lunch, they will also get the next day's breakfast. The children will have that at home before they come to school. So that will continue as well.
Any other questions?
Erica has a question.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
Sorry, it's hard. Yeah, sorry about that.
I know it's hard. I just, for clarification and for the record, because the middle school schedule for hybrid and for remote has changed since the last board meeting, I'm just putting on the record that this reconfirmation would be inclusive of that new middle school schedule.
Right. So at the last board meeting, there was a discussion and there was some information about, there was a slide for the middle school and it was stating that it would be a hybrid model, but you're right. The details of that plan came out from Mr. Noonan and his team regarding the daily schedule with some additions to more online time for the students to be live with their teacher. And also to allow for an alternating AM and PM grouping between students who are hybrid and remote. You're correct. So that information is reflected in this month's plan that we send up to the state. But the premise of it being hybrid, meaning some face-to-face and a full online option still for children that would like it, remains the same.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Sure. I just have one more thing to add, and that's looking forward. So Ms. Olson tonight did talk about our summer programs, and we're optimistic that the funding for grants will continue, that we'll get some relief to provide additional programs for students this summer. We were lucky last year that we had many, hundreds of students that typically wouldn't take advantage of summer school or even our online software options were able to do so free of charge. Any of those things that we pay for an entire school year, we know will still be free of charge offered to our families. And we're hopeful that the grant money comes through so that we can pay our staff to do the programming and allow our children to come in. But we've gotten some questions about what will it look like after March 1st. So we know what we're doing on March 1st, and then what will we do from March into April, May, and June? We certainly make a lot of plans. We have cycled through so many iterations since last March of exactly how we'll service our students. And things do change regarding what we have to abide by state rules and CDC, but we're hopeful that once we're back, we have a few weeks under our belt, we have some ideas out there about how to increase or add to what we're offering. We want to take advantage of those opportunities, and in some cases, we need to be back and kind of see how things are moving. We know that there are some local districts doing it differently. In fact, I was online today with a superintendent from a local district who asked for all the copies of our plans because he wanted to know exactly how we were handling groups of instruction, how are we answering questions. He actually indicated that a few of our ideas are being used by his district now. So we're all learning from each other, and we all want to do the best for our community. But I will say, just for the board and for our community, we're looking forward. We're constantly seeing how to improve that. But we right now can't promise exactly what it would look like April the 1st, but certainly we will keep the community and the board apprised of any changes or opportunities that we're going to take advantage of between now and then.
I have one question. Has there been any conversation regarding, like, and I know we don't have it for the middle school, like a latchkey, but because it ends the way it does, I think just before 11 o'clock, is there any conversation or ideas around something to help those kids for the rest of the day, or whether it's getting them to the Boys and Girls Club, whether it's getting them to the Salvation Army, those programs that have been around? Is there any conversation around that? Because I know that's been, you know, a pain point with parents about, okay, they're there till 10:50 and I can't leave work. So.
Sure. I will check in with Mr. Noonan about the outside agencies. In a typical year, we would have some programs where children do go over to the Boys and Girls Club. And I know they've often mimicked their service to the students in the club based on what the schools in the area have been doing. But you mentioned the Salvation Army, who also has limited slots for after-school programs, as well as the YMCA, who would actually run a program for students right in the school itself. I'm not aware of any that are changing, meaning that it would now start in the middle of the day. All those programs that I mentioned used to take place after school, after 3 or 3:30. So I will check in with the middle school staff and find out about if there's been any, outreach from those clubs to us or vice versa. And opportunities for parents. But right now, I don't know of any major changes that have been made to add those to that time frame or schedule.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? So moving on. Item 7 is our consent agenda. Right now we have 7.1 personnel changes, 7.2 payment of expenses, and 7.3 minutes. Are there any additions or subtractions?
Madam President, I would like to remove item 7.3 and have that as 3 standalone motions.
Okay. Any other additions or subtractions? Mrs. Sykes.
I would like to add the 8.1, 8.2, 8.3 International Academy Consortium, 8.4 the MASB election, 8.5 the second reading of the policies and guidelines, 8.6 DTE for Upton Elementary, 8.7 for the furniture, 8.8 the REMC technology purchase.
Mrs. Sykes, I'm not sure that we can add the MASB Board of Directors election. I believe we have to put a name in that resolution.
And Mr. Chakowski asked that we vote on 8.3.
Okay. We will, and 8.3 is.
Was I correct there?
No, Paula, my motion was to pull 7.3 off the consent agenda, the minutes from 3 separate meetings. I think those should be voted on separately.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
No worries.
But I do not believe, I think we have to put a name into the 8.4. Is that right, Mr. Cardamone or Mr. Jaworski? I believe you two vetted the candidates.
Yes. Tim and I both attended a forum. We have a recommendation, but yeah, we should pull that. We can discuss it, making our recommendation then, and then fill in a name.
Okay, so are there any additional additions or subtractions or any objections? If not, then our consent agenda includes 7.1 personnel changes, 7.2 payment of expenses, 8.1 monthly reconfirmation of extended COVID-19 learning plan, 8.2 monthly pupil accounting two-way interaction rates for January 2021, 8.3 International Academy Consortium Agreement amendments, 8.5 the second reading of the revised, replaced, and/or recommended policies and guidelines, 8.6 DTE Upton Elementary, 8.7 Adams and Upton Furniture, 8.8 REMC Instructional Technology Purchasing Approval, which brings, so our consent agenda is passed. That brings us to item 7.3, minutes. We have, I'm sorry, Mr. Jaworski.
I move that we approve the organizational minutes dated on January 14th, 2021.
Is there a second? Mrs. Haynes, is there any discussion? Mr. Cardamone, can I have a roll call, please?
I'm sorry, are we voting for just the organizational meeting or
Yes,
all
yes.
three of the meetings?
We're doing them one at a time. So on this, the organizational minutes, I will vote yes. Trustee Sykes,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
Trustee Haynes,
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma,
Yes.
and Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
That motion passes. Now we will deal with the regular minutes of January 14th, 2021. Can I have a resolution?
Madam President, I move that we approve the regular minutes of the school board meeting on January 14th, 2021.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I have a second.
Mrs. Alexander. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Cardamone, can we have a roll call?
Yes, Trustee Jaworski,
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzma,
Yes.
Trustee Haynes,
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Marty, I couldn't hear you.
Did you say Haynes?
yeah, Trustee Haynes,
You broke up, so we couldn't hear you. Yes.
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Oh, yes, sorry, Trustee Sykes.
Okay, that brings us to Facilities and Finance from January 7th, 2021. Can I have a resolution?
Madam President, I move that we approve the minutes of the Finance and Facilities meeting dated January 7th, 2021.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Haynes. Is there discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Cardamone?
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski,
Yes.
Trustee Sykes,
Yes.
Trustee Haynes,
Yes.
Oh, Mark, we just lost that completely, Mr. Cardamone.
I went to Trustee Van Heitzma. Is that the one we missed?
Yes.
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
and I will vote yes.
Motion carries. This will be much easier if when we're all in person and we can see each other. Thank you. That brings us to item 9, which is our second opportunity for public comment. The same rules apply as earlier.
Ms. Anderson, we need to vote on the MASB.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Mrs. Sutterfield. Oh my gosh, again. So we are now at, I'm scrolling up, MASB Board of Directors election. Could I have a resolution? And again, I know Mr. Jaworski and Mr. Cardamone and many others of us, I believe, probably watched or read the bios of the candidates.
Actually, yes, I'll read the resolution momentarily just for the public. MASB, Michigan Association of School Boards, is the state level organization for school board members. It's kind of our equivalent to MAS or MSBO, the business office officials, the superintendents and administrators have an organization. This is our organization. This is an election for the board of directors, and we are voting on our candidate for Region 8, which is Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County. And I'm going to read the resolution, leaving the name out for the moment. Resolved that the Royal Oak Schools Board of Education supports for the position on the MASB Board of Directors to represent Region 8 for a term of 3 years. And I don't want to step on the president, but this would be the time for comments.
I know that you and Mr. Jaworski attended virtually the candidate forum. I believe that you were going to present a candidate that you would recommend for us.
Yeah, Madam President, I move that we nominate as a board Gina Walker, who's currently serving as president of the New Haven Community Schools Board of Education, as the representative that we will support.
And can I have a second, please? Mrs. Haynes. Now, is there discussion? Mrs. Van Heitzma.
I was just going to say, there's a lot of candidates that, we've been able to meet virtually over the last year. And so there's a lot of good candidates, and I'm grateful for somebody who's willing to take on some additional responsibilities at this time. So thank you.
Mr. Cardamone.
Yeah, I just like to say I concur. Gina Walker on the virtual forum was very impressive. And she's been on her board for 10 years. And if you're familiar with New Haven, they've had some issues with performance, funding, also racial issues. She's well versed in all those things, and they have overcome them during her tenure. So I think she brings some really good experience to represent us in Region 8.
Mrs. Alexander, did you raise your hand?
I did, but I was actually just going to ask if one of them could share some of the qualities, and so Mr. Cardamone was able to do that.
Thank you. Is there more discussion? We have a resolution right now on the floor to support Gina Walker as our Region 8 candidate for the MASB Board of Directors. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Cardamone, could I have a roll call?
Yes, Trustee Van Heitzma.
Yes.
Trustee Jaworski.
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
I can't.
Yes, I muted myself. Yes.
Trustee Alexander.
Yes.
We'll vote yes. Trustee Sykes.
Yes.
And Trustee Anderson.
Yes. Motion passes. We will send that motion. Is the procedure to send it to the MASB, Mr. Cardamone, or Mr. Jaworski?
Yeah, I would believe that that would be sent to MASB. I know that the particular instructions would have been sent to Paula Sutterfield, so I'm sure she'll take care of that appropriately.
I do have the resolution and I will note the candidate and I will send that to MASB.
Thank you. Now that brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The same rules apply. I see Nora Mullen has her hand raised. Could you make sure that you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Nora Mullen, I live at 1028 Edgewood in Royal Oak. I was asking, and I may have missed this in all of the information. How are we handling families who maybe routinely don't answer the check-in questions? I'm sorry, I don't remember what we called the app. Or who are, for lack of a better word, caught sending their kids to school sick, regardless of what it is that they're sick with. How are we handling that for students? How are we handling that for classroom notifications? There's been very little communication about how this is handled, and eventually someone's going to come to school sick. Like, that's just the way it works. It happens all the time. There's no way around it. Assuming that everyone is going to be 100% honest and on top of it, I think is willful ignorance at this point. Charlotte, hang on a second. Sorry. We can say hi to my fourth grader. And I just want to know what the plan in place is so that it's not a surprise to somebody when something happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Mrs. Sutterfield, do you see any other hands raised?
I do not.
Then public comment is closed. Oh, I do see Mary Saltzman. We will, you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Beth Saltzman. I live at 26138 Dartmouth Street in Madison Heights. I am a school of choice parent, but I'm also a staff member at Keller Elementary, a school volunteer, Girl Scout leader, etc. I'd like to start by saying that my comments are directly mostly to the school board this evening, but I hope that everyone here does hear what I have to say. I definitely echo the thoughts of the first commenter at tonight's meeting, which was excellently stated. And my comments are also not meant to reflect the staff or leadership in my building, who have all done an excellent job adapting to the challenges that this pandemic has brought. But it is my strong opinion that the return to school is absolutely necessary. It has been necessary for quite some time. For all intents and purposes, my child is doing well academically. On paper, she is excelling. However, she is suffering mentally and emotionally. My daughter is a third grader who is otherwise a happy student involved in the Royal Oak Children's Choir, after-school choir, homework club, talent show, etc. Just this week, I watched my beautiful girl break down. She told me that virtual school is like a prison. She wants to throw her Chromebook out the window, but she is faking a happy smile, and that I could never understand the pressure of online learning. This is breaking her. Please understand, I am a single mom with no other support. I have done my best to find her accommodations for school while I have to go to work. And I know that I am not the exception in this. All families are suffering. I was heartbroken to hear what she actually goes through logging on every day. No classroom, no peer interactions. And this truly lies on the shoulders of the people sitting in this meeting tonight. Our neighbors and friends have all been back to school. They were back in the fall, and they have been back for weeks since Christmas. It can be done safely, and it should be done safely. That being said, I beg you to immediately begin to plan for 5-day school in person by the 4th marking period of this year. We have seen that it is safe to do so, and our kids desperately need our administrators and our board members to consider this as a very immediate need. Much like the anxiety of virtual learning in the fall, we won't know what we don't know until about the return to school if we don't just go back and figure it out from there. Our virtual families have their options to stay home, so please give our families who are ready to return in person as soon as possible options as well, and let's build from there so that they can attend school for a 5-day week by the end of the year, and in the fall, as Pat Walensky said earlier, have a much more normal school year ahead of them. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I see Cassandra Fitzgerald.
Hi, I'm Cassandra Fitzgerald. I live at 2019 North Main Street, and I am an educator for Royal Oak Schools as a paraeducator at Adams Elementary. I do value every single member of the school board as well as the superintendent for explaining all the things that were discussed at this meeting. And I do follow and do understand some of the concerns with the parents about going for a full day program. And I apologize for a little bit of background noise. But overall, I do see that we should be making plans for a possible 5-day program at all levels. And especially for those middle schoolers, there needs to be a some type of after school venue for them because of right now only having a half day versus the elementaries having a longer day schedule. So I'll leave you with that and have a great evening.
Thank you. I see Asia. You could make sure to state your full name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Asia Vyers. I live at 636 South Gainsborough Avenue in Royal Oak. I have 2 children that attend elementary school. One is a 5th grader, one is a 2nd grader, both at Keller Elementary. I agree with Mary Beth Saltzman, who was the 2 speakers ago, as far as the mental health of our children. My 5th grader breaks down, my 5th grader breaks down probably every week, asking why he can't go back to school. He misses his teachers, he misses his friends, and he misses his academics at school. My 2nd grader doesn't quite understand everything. She's excelling quite well. Both of them are doing well in their studies. It is the mental health of the children needing to be back in school. And again, like Mary Beth said, other districts have been able to do this and do this successfully. I am a healthcare worker. I'm a registered nurse. And like myself and like any other parent would never want to put my child or anyone else in harm's way. But I think that, like Mary Beth also mentioned, the families that are ready to go back to school should have an option, and it should be planned for, soon, if not immediately, to return to school 5 full days a week. And the families that want to stay at home in their virtual option should be able to do that as well, whatever makes them comfortable, because everyone has circumstances that fits their family. One option would fit better than the other. So my final remark is I appreciate everyone that works on the board, that does their job and is their due diligence in all this. And I know that this has never been done before. Obviously, as a healthcare worker, I've never done this before either. So I hope that in good faith, you all will make a decision to hopefully get our children back in school 5 days a week, face-to-face, full days, as soon as possible for those families that choose that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? John Stanis.
Yeah, John! Woo, woo,
woo, woo. I just talked to him.
Good evening. Are y'all there?
Could you state your name?
Yes, John Staniszewski.
John Staniszewski.
1029 North Connecticut Avenue, Royal Oak, Michigan 48067. I just want to echo the sentiments of the last caller on Gainsborough. An RN, she's going through it the first time. School's going through it the first time. It's time to get back, and it's time to get back more than just the 2 days. And I think we all need to think about what we're doing April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, and then all of next year. I don't think it's satisfactory enough to just dust off the old plan, although it's good. I think we need to be thinking more for the kids. My wife made a statement last night to me that rings through. My daughter's a third grader. The last time she completed a full year of school in person was first grade. That's a problem that we can't continue to let happen. And I really hope to come to the next board meeting in April discussing proactive ways to get us back 5 days a week. Keller Elementary's been very helpful along the way, but it's time to step up our game here and not be in last place and be in first place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Seeing none, we will now close public comment. And we will come to item 10 on our agenda, collective bargaining strategy. Could I have a resolution, please? Ms. Van Heitzma?
Excuse me. Resolve that Royal Oak Schools Board of Education adjourn to a closed session for the purpose of discussing negotiations connected with collective bargaining agreements as is permissible under the Open Meetings Act 15.268, Section 8, subsection C.
Could I have a second, please?
I will second.
This is Alexander. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, Mr. Cardamone?
Yes, Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Sykes.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
Trustee Haynes.
Did you say Haynes? You broke out
Trustee
again.
Haynes,
Yeah, yes.
sorry about
Sorry.
Trustee Van Heitzma
Yes.
and Trustee Jehovah.
Yes.
Did I do myself? I vote yes if I haven't already.
Motion carries. Just to let everybody know who's in the larger meeting, we will be leaving this meeting and we will be going to a different meeting and we will come back to this meeting for our last couple agenda items. So school board members, let's meet in the other meeting in about 5 minutes, within the next 5 minutes or so.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back in open session and we are at item 11 on our agenda, board comments and liaison reports. Does anyone have anything? Mrs. Sykes.
I was on the Zoom call with the Oak Ridge PTA the other night and the science teacher, they did have math and science week and packets were sent home to the students. I believe this was 5th grade for doing science experiments. And the president of the PTA has 2 daughters and one of her daughters, her husband works at home while she works at Keller. And she explained that maybe next year, if there could be a little caveat that says parents to assist. She said while she was at work and her husband was down the basement on the phone, her daughter did this whole experiment and filmed it on her phone, had to do something with food colors and made a heck of a mess all over everything. But I guess there are all the kids' videos on the Oak Ridge website. So it's supposed to be pretty neat.
Thank you. Anyone else? It's Patrick.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to reiterate to the board and to our community that information on the Clear to Go app will be going out to parents tomorrow. And that information will include what to do about reporting illnesses and absences. And with or without the adoption of the Clear to Go app, parents are still obligated to monitor their own children's health. That is a form that is also new to us this year by the state, that parents are monitoring at home and that they're keeping their children home when they're ill or they show any of the symptoms. So in addition to Clear to Go and all the how-tos, we will make sure that that health information and the screener questions is also accompanies that and goes out to our parents. So I just wanted to mention that.
And just a question, we still have the Oakland County nurses with us as well. Is that correct?
We do. We still have 2 full-time nurses, or 2 nurses that are assigned to us to service all of our schools, yes, through the end of the year.
And Mrs. Haynes, I saw that you were raising your hand.
I had 2 things. One, I had the Northwood PTA this week, and what an amazing group of parents and educators. And they had a wonderful fundraiser yesterday with Marco's Pizza, and we published it everywhere. So hopefully they got some good funds from that. And then, Mary Beth, can you share with the parents that are still online what we discussed about just the processes of where the school board comes to play in making decisions?
Sure. So, you know, the number of plans that we make and different changes that we might make to the curriculum over time would certainly be well vetted and researched by the administrative team. Ultimately, there's a recommendation made to the board for any changes, and that includes this year with the learning plans. And that would be the collective work of our entire administrative team, as well as our staff and the input research that we've done. We often look at what other districts are doing. So with or without a pandemic, it's a typical way of our doing business. But ultimately, a recommendation is brought before the board, hopefully with thorough information and a lot of information and research behind it prepared for them. And ultimately, the board, you know, makes a decision to adopt or not. But when you start talking about how a schedule works, or the length of a certain period of the day, or how many students are assigned at certain points or in classes, that's all the responsibility of me and then all of the administrators that work within the school. So not unlike that routine process, this learning plan is constantly under review and development. We bring a recommendation to the board for adoption. It's not really a plan where we sit down line by line and have board members weigh in on each of those options. That's why we rely on our staff and our administrators to come up with the best plan and to think through those details for us for that recommendation. So in as much as the board votes on things and votes to support things, they also vote that by listening to the recommendation that I bring to you. So it's not uncommon that there are certain details of a plan that anyone on this call wouldn't be privy to. There are times when you ask me questions that I have to research and make sure I have the best answer or the most accurate answer for you. And that just speaks to the complexities of the plan. So I think a typical process in a normal school year, you would see this once or twice a year where there's a major decision. And this year we actually have this has been at our doorstep like, 8 times in the school year, which is just so unheard of. So it's complex. It is something that we research well and that we bring to the board with confidence each time we bring you a plan. So does that help answer your question?
Thank you. Perfect.
Ms. Van Heidsma.
Yes, I would just like to take a minute to recognize all of our schools' PTAs. This month is usually our celebration of Founders Day, where we are able to get together collectively, all the schools, and just kind of celebrate all the work that's done during the year. And I know our PTAs wish they could be in the schools. They wish they could be doing things with the families and the kids and the staff. And so but I did want to take an opportunity to thank all the PTAs for all the work that they do consistently. And this year is 100 years of PTA in Royal Oak. So we're definitely sad to be missing that celebration this year, but that just makes next year even more special for us to celebrate a little bit more. But yeah, just a huge thank you to all of our PTAs for everything they do, and all the families and staff that participate with the PTAs to get things done. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Tim has a question, or has raised his
Oh, I'm
hand.
sorry. Okay, I'm not. Oh, okay, I'm checking on that, the raise hand function as well. Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Jaworski?
I just want to I was at the Keller PTA meeting on Monday. And I really want to commend their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and the subcommittee working with that committee. they're doing some really, really great work, and I'm really impressed with everything they're doing there. And also to encourage any color parents who are watching the meeting today, if you're not involved in PTA, it's really a great organization, super well run, and I think it would be worth your time and you'd really enjoy it if you were able to get involved with your school PTA.
Thank you. Anyone else? Did I hear earlier in the meeting that we were talking about having board tours to look at the facilities? Will we be getting emails about possible dates for that?
We're organizing our tour guides right now to ensure that they will be there. We'll set a schedule and publish that to the board, and I know it's difficult getting a lot of people on the same calendar at the same time, so we'll have a couple opportunities over the next 2 weeks for board members to come out and tour the buildings with us. And that will include, Ms. Kearns and Mr. Murphy, Ms. Van, myself, and Kathy Mellon.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to have a board comment or liaison? I just wanted to say that in looking back in historical records, if you look back to the early days of the PTAs, they would start with a hymn and they would all sing, and then they would have tea, and everyone's glad that I'm not singing at PTA meetings. That's the only thing I can tell you for sure. So having said that, we are at item 12, adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mrs. Haynes. Is there a second? Mr. Cardamone. Could we have a roll call, please? Wait, is there any discussion?
I will vote yes. Trustee Anderson?
Yes.
Trustee Sykes? Trustee Alexander?
Yes.
Trustee Haynes?
Yes.
Trustee Van Heitzman?
Yes.
And Trustee Jaworski?
Yes.
And we are adjourned. Our next meeting will be March 11th, and we will probably be virtual, but we will see what the state decides for sure. So thank you all. Have a great rest of the week.
Be safe, everyone.
Yep, take care. Bye-bye.